Hey guys, it's Keith Douglas from Tora Tora. I've also just released a instrumental solo album called Remnants of Euphoria, and you are watching We Go to 11.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
So Keith, you have a solo release. I don't know if would you call it an album, an EP, but it's instrumental music.
It is.
And
It is. It's I'm calling it a full album. It's eight tracks total. The first 7 are instrumental, just guitar stuff. And then the 8th song is a song called Coming My Way that I did with a friend of mine, Sophie West, and she did vocals and lyrics. She was a former neighbor of mine and a great vocalist. So, she was gracious enough to sing on that. I think it came out really cool, but it's kind of like a bonus track.
Sure. Yeah, and that's kind of what I was going to ask about the vocal track. That came at the tail end, or was it always a plan to do that one and included on the album?
I was just I've got so many pieces of songs and music ideas that have just been laying around for so long. Just when I was trying to collect, the pieces of music that I wanted to complete, it's just such a great tune, and we had released it earlier, a year or two earlier, but just production quality was bad. It was different, a little different arrangement. So, this was a second chance for what I think is a pretty cool, great song.
Right. To give it another breath of life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So as far as the other tunes on there, all instrumentals, how long have those things been laying around in your head, like marinating and stuff? Because I'm guessing that's all fresh stuff.
Yeah, it's all pretty fresh within the last year or two, anyway. I put all this together. I did most of the work during 2024, starting about this time last year, I guess. And it was actually released on December 9th, I believe. And then we got with the holidays, and I've just been kind of here and there and trying to get back to it and give it a little push,
Right. And that's available on what's your Amplified, right? It's
Keith Douglas Amplified.
KeithDouglasamplified.com. That's what it is. I remember the Amplified because that's the one that's harder to remember to insert into the address there, but that's available and folks can buy it. I think
you can. It's available CD and vinyl, signed or unsigned, and also a digital download's available. Just
for me though, it's a good how would I put it? I think a driving record. I think as some of the Satriani albums, that are all I think of The Extremist is always a good record to play as you're driving.
And that's kind of how it's meant. It's just if you're on a trip or some background music while you're working or whatever, I can't sing. So, that was never even a consideration,
So before I mention the tunes that I've really kind of latched onto, what's the meaning behind the title? Because the title is pretty unique, Remnants of Euphoria, and it's got like a car, wreck or something in there.
That's actually it was a lyric in Jimi Hendrix on Axis Bold as Love. He it's part of the story he's telling there, and just that line always hung with me. I just think it's cool, He's talking about a general with these old medals and remnants of euphoria, and I just always thought that was cool, and I just kind of have taken it on to when you hear something from your past or a smell or anything that brings back a remnant of a great memory or something from your childhood or whenever, it's just that's kind of just what I ended up referring to with that title. But
right. Wonderful Disaster. That opens the album out, and I think you
Right.
got a pretty good 1-2 punch there, because those are the two tunes that I've been kind of leaning more towards playing over and over. But tell us about that one. What was the influence behind Wonderful Disaster?
A lot of these, man, I've got a note on my phone, and just, whenever I hear a cool title or something that, Anthony Corder, singer for Tora Tora, I mean,
Right.
he does the same thing, and we're always just, keeping up with a list of ideas to share with each other. And I don't know. It's something that just came across my mind. Wonderful Disaster. I just like the, what do you call it? It's kind of a riddle in a way,
Mm-hmm.
what's the right word? It's escaping me right now.
Right. But with that, I mean, the origins of the riffs for that particular tune. I mean, what inspired those?
I think just the way I usually work is just get a drum beat going, and maybe I'll have a bass line or something cool, and just, man, I just play along until I hit across something that I think is cool. And
Yeah.
and then from there, it's just kind of building on, a melody line or just whatever. And it's usually just the first thing that I like is what I just kind of stick with. I've worked on some songs. I mean, you can do it forever. I mean, and redo things and redo. And I'm just, I feel like if I get a good idea across, I'm just ready to move on to the next thing. I don't take it all that seriously. I mean, I do, but I don't.
Right.
It's fun for me. I just like making music, and I'm really excited about this because it's the first thing I was actually able to complete, top to bottom myself,
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
What about the tune Red Hot and Blue? Again, 1-2 punch opening the record. That's got to be my favorite, I think.
It's pretty wild, man. That's, if there was going to be a guitar song, it's just something I came across. I was actually doing it as a warm up, that riff. It's kind of a triplet just to get my fingers moving, and I just ended up, just like I said, just jamming with the rhythm, and it just kind of grew from there, and I just made it up as I went, and it, I think that it came out really, really cool,
Mm-hmm.
Go-
Is there a particular song that you say, that one took a little bit more work? I know you were just talking about when you get to a point, you're like, I think this is done. I'm not going to overdo it. It's not going to be Chinese Democracy, or like 10 years later, and then you're like, I'm not happy with it.
It's just rock and roll, man,
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, what was your original?
Well, the question was, is there a particular tune that might have taken a little bit more time that then you can sit back and go, I'm proud of that one?
Probably the slower songs.
Mm-hmm.
Just, I don't know. It's just kind of, a lot of the rhythms are just a repetitive 1 or 2 or 3 chords or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Just, it might have taken me longer to find all the right pieces that I wanted to keep, I guess.
Right. Right.
Stuff like the Wonderful Disaster song and Red Hot and Blue stuff, those were pretty quick, and they just kind of fell together. I was super excited about those, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I kind of dig all of them. I mean, I think the sequence was really important also, to take you kind of through a little journey,
Right.
musical journey. So I think it flows well together, and, and then between a couple of tunes, there's a little filler, some transitions, just because dead space was just, I didn't like it. So,
right.
I just kind of threw in some stuff that halfway made sense to me and sounded cool. So
now what's been your experience now that you've, done this mostly instrumental release? Is it, I would think it would be harder to come up with something that's all instrumental with no vocal, no lyrics.
Well, there's a lot more space to fill.
Yeah. So was that challenging?
The biggest challenge is to, just for it to not get boring. I guess. I mean, there's a lot of space to fill, and there's only so much repetition. There's some stuff on there that in hindsight I probably would have changed on a couple of things. But yeah, I mean, that's the biggest challenge, just to try to keep it interesting without, you know, being too boring, I guess, or
Yeah,
too repetitive,
right. Because I think with some of the, I think we mentioned some of the artists, Satriani,
Yeah.
and there have been other artists that have taken, a shot at doing an instrumental record.
Oh
And
yeah,
it's like
tons.
one or two songs in and you're kind of done. It just
Yeah.
doesn't hold your attention. So it is a
Right.
challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. And uh, I'm not a guitar burner, shredder, whatever
Right.
you want to call it. I'm more into melody and just what feels good and grooving, So
For yourself as an inspiration influences, I mean, I know you mentioned Hendrix. That's where the origin of the title of the record came from.
Yeah,
But
right.
what are some other influences that you have that we may not even be aware of?
Oh man, I go back, man. I grew up in the 70s, so the first record I ever bought with my own money was Foreigner Double Vision.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I love Mick Jones from Foreigner. I think is just, he's not real technical, but man,
Sure.
some of the coolest
Right.
solos ever. I always loved like Gary Richrath from REO Speedwagon.
Oh, yeah.
Was a great guitar player. And then the same usual suspects. I mean, Ace Frehley, I was a huge Kiss fan, and of course on to Randy Rhoads and Eddie Van Halen and gosh, I don't know, just all the usual. Angus Young. I mean, I love Billy Gibbons. Yeah, I don't know. I always kind of leaned more towards the bluesy or more melodic players.
Which is interesting because I think with Tora Tora, I think the first introduction to the band was Walking Shoes, which is basically a hard rock and driving blues tune.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And back in those days, I was a little more gosh, I don't know. When you're young, you don't know.
Yeah.
We went for it. What I
Yeah.
mean? I was trying to play the most technical solos I could come up with. And, it's funny now when we'll play a gig every once in a while and, I've got to relearn some of those solos and I'm just like, man, I can't get a hold of this, So
Yeah.
I may have to, I was quite ambitious, put it that way.
Sure.
Yeah. And there's, tons of tour demos and stuff that I've heard back and I'm just like, man, what was I thinking, man? What was I doing? But, some
Right.
stuff is really cool, and at the time, just, I mean, that seems like a million years ago.
Sure.
So
Now, having said that, I mean, do you have a blues album in you? I mean, because it would almost seem like that's the next step.
I don't think I'm up to par, man, with some of these blues guys, man. Are you familiar with Jared James Nichols?
Yes.
Dude,
Yes.
man, I could watch that guy play all day long, and he can get more out of 2 or 3 notes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. That's the kind of guitar playing I love.
Right.
When I see people like him and Joe Bonamassa and Eric Gales,
Oh, yeah.
I'm just like, man, I don't have any business trying to get into that,
I mean, I think back to the first time I saw Jared James Nichols. He was opening for Zach Wilde, Black Label Society. And,
Oh, really?
And it was like, here comes this guy, and it's like, my God, it's like Ted Nugent on steroids with a
man.
bluesier spin to it.
Oh,
it's just
man,
like wild.
he's got a magical touch, man. It's unbelievable, just his vibrato. I came across him on Instagram, I guess, 3-4 years ago.
Right.
I've never seen him live. I've never heard his albums. I've heard a song or here or there,
Sure.
but man, I could just watch him play, man, forever.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's got so much feeling in it, and it's just flowing through him. I mean, he's definitely got a real gift.
Yeah. No, and his shows are off the hook, man. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
just
I
like he
mean,
blows you away every
I
time. I
know.
mean,
I
he's
know.
great.
It's incredible.
So, what's the game plan as far as promoting this? I mean, are you going to do any local gigs there in your area, or is it going to
I
be
doubt
what
it.
are you going to
I
do?
mean, you know, I don't really have time for it, to
Uh-huh.
be honest with you. It would
Yeah.
take a lot and a lot of rehearsals, and I just, it's just more really at this point, just somewhere to, you know, put my music, and make it
Right.
accessible. And if people are into it, cool. And I'm trying to get to work on a follow up,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
y- I'll just
So,
pump them out. I'm not much of a content creator. I don't
hmm
I don't love the social media aspect of it.
hmm
Uh, it's so time consuming, and I
it
just
can
want
be.
music.
Sure. Sure.
So,
So
uh,
there is something coming up, like as a follow up. You're saying at this point.
yeah, I've been trying to, man. I was on a trip around Christmas time visiting my folks in Florida, and man, we walked back in the door from that trip, and my whole lowest level of my house, including my
Mhm.
studio, was flooded. So
Oh.
we had to take apart. I mean, it's been an issue, and then so that's kind of thrown me off my game.
Mhm.
I was really ready to just keep rolling right into another one, but I've had a little setback. So,
Right. Right.
but
Okay.
we're
Well,
getting there, man. It'll be up, and I'll be rolling sooner than later. So,
and again, just real quick, and we'll tag it too. Keith Douglas Amplified.com is when you can pick
yeah,
up the Remnants of Euphoria
yes,
album that we've been
absolutely,
talking about. So
yeah,
we hope people check it out and buy a copy. Like you said, it's
yeah.
either
Why not?
vinyl,
You know,
signed, unsigned, CD, signed, unsigned.
yeah,
So good stuff. I don't know if you have a few more moments we can throw a couple Tora Tora things on there
yeah,
because I am a
absolutely.
fan of Tora Tora. I mean,
Oh well, thank
again,
you.
uh, so 89,
Yeah.
like I said, Walking Shoes. What's the story behind that tune? Any thoughts on the origins and how that came up?
Man,
And
that was one of those songs, and, I've heard people say it, some of the best ones come really quick and easy,
right,
and, that's a riff I just kind of came up with. Again, my dad had this old-timey keyboard, and they used to have the built-in drum beats, like a samba or
sure,
a shuffle or whatever, and I was just playing along with one of those, and found that bluesy riff and just kind of
sure.
built on that. And when I got with Anthony on that one, man, we sat on the balcony at my apartment that I was living in, and we just sat in the sunshine and drank a beer and
hmm
threw it together in about
That
15
was it,
minutes,
huh?
and then once we got it with the band, I mean, you just know. It was just
Yeah.
like, "Oh, this is a good one," so it was a quick and easy, and I love that that was our first single in representing the bluesier side. I mean, we all grew up hanging out on Beale Street, and
Right.
seeing the real dudes. So it was a really tip of the hat, to our roots, I guess.
So when you guys had written that, I mean, there was no question that was going to make the debut record.
Yeah, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. We
And you
we had
guys,
to go
yeah,
through
go
a
ahead.
few. Yeah.
Yeah. So it took some refining, is what you're saying.
It took a little bit, and we started working here at Ardent Recording in Memphis. And the first thing we recorded with them was a song called Dancing with a Gypsy that was on the Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure soundtrack.
Right.
And we just kind of went from there recording. I think we did 4 or 5 tunes, and they went and traveled around to the labels and shopped it around. But that was really our first real experience. I mean, we had been in some other smaller studios on a very low budget and just kind of banged out a song or two,
hmm
which, we're okay. I mean,
Yeah.
but this was our first time working in a real studio with real producers, and we were honestly didn't really know where we were going. That to me, that first album kind of jumps around. It's here and there, and I don't really think we knew who we were yet, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
we kind of hit on a little bit of everything
Sure.
on that one. So
And you had Joe Hardy on that one. He was,
yeah.
I mean, I'm guessing you guys were aware of his track
Oh
record.
man. Oh my gosh, man. We miss him so much, man. He was amazing to know and to work with and to get to make an album with. He was just a real character, man. And you know, I think of him, and it's making me think of right now. I was working with him just myself alone. You know, he's great friends with the ZZ Top guys.
Right.
And, so I'm out in the studio in the main room trying to lay down a solo or guitar tracks or something. And I look up and, you know, Billy Gibbons is in the control room watching, and I'm like, oh, you know, no pressure there.
Right.
You know, so, but I'll never forget that. I mean, that was a mind blower for a you know, 20-year-old.
Yeah.
Hey,
Kidding.
you know,
Yeah.
one of my heroes sitting there, and he went on to, you know, we were showing him some cool effects pedals, and you know, he was playing my guitar, and we
Wow.
were passing around, and it was a really cool thing. But Joe was a really awesome dude, man. Just he was a trip. I can just say it was so
Yeah.
fun, man. We had such a good time, and he really he helped us a lot
Mm-hmm.
just with the
And
whole
then
process, you know.
the Wild America. I mean, thoughts on that record? Thinking back, because
I think that's probably my favorite
yeah.
thing we put. That to me is what I always thought we should be, you know, and we had a lot of shows and a lot of play-in and a lot of seasoning.
Right.
We kind of knew way better where we were trying to get, you know, and that's a great, to me, that's the album I'm most proud of
Right.
everything Tora Tora has done. I mean, I love
And
the guitar
the
sounds. It's
I
great, you
think
know.
the Amnesia tune. I mean, Jesus, that's like bluesy. It's driving, killer
Yeah,
groove.
yeah, we
killer
wrote that one
production.
with Taylor Rhodes out of Nashville.
Right.
He's just done a lot of work. Back then he was working a lot with kicks.
Mm-hmm.
He
Right.
was a co-writer on an Aerosmith tune, I think on Crying.
Yeah,
One of
I think
those.
you're right.
So we would just go and hang with him in Nashville, drive up from Memphis, and just knock around a couple ideas. You know, our record label kind of put us in touch with different writers they thought we might want to work with. You know, which we also did that on Surprise Attack album. The song "Guilty" was our first experience with an outside writer, and you know that was a learning experience, you know, because immediately we were like, no way, you know, we're not doing this, you know. But we ended up getting a great tune out of it. So we were a little more open for the next record. And we wrote with Taylor as well as a couple of songs with Stan Lynch from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, and those were really cool too. Those are some of my favorite tunes.
So when it came down to production, I mean, was Joe's name in the mix for the second record, or
You know, I don't know what he was working on at that time. You know, it's always, there's a lot to do with scheduling,
Sure.
you know, and he was a pretty busy guy. So, you know, we actually started that one off with another producer there, John Hampton, who had, that's who we started working with on Wild America. He was an Ardent guy. But he's done a ton of cool stuff. We lost him also. He passed away a few years back. He had done a lot of work with Stevie Ray Vaughan and all kinds of really cool stuff. So he started on it with us, and our label, I don't know, we were just having a hard time getting things together, or they weren't liking the way it sounded. So they moved him to produce the Gin Blossoms first album. And they were also on A&M Records.
Right.
So at that point, they brought in a producer named Arthur Payson. and he was a trip too. But man, he really worked us. Man, he put us through it.
Okay.
Like he was a perfectionist, but and it was hard, man. It was a hard, tough experience. But man, when we heard the mix in the final album, over the big speakers, and that, man, it was just, we were blown away. Sonically, I think it sounds really great. It still holds up today. I mean, I think it sounds really good still.
Yeah. All things considered, right? I mean, it's just the right amount of loudness.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. And man, the guitars, I just love
Mm-hmm.
the guitar sounds we got, and so that was a really, really great. That's my favorite.
Nice.
No doubt about it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, lots of great stuff there with the first couple records, especially. I think but I'm with you. I think Wild America, things came together, and criminally underrated album, I think.
I think so. And that was kind of getting in a weird time with the label restructuring, and I don't know, a lot of things kind of started changing there.
Right. Were you much of a fan of the stripped down grunge type stuff, or not really?
I am more now than I was then, probably. I probably heard we had the same, our A&R guy, Brian Huttenhauer, also A&R'd for Soundgarden. He signed, and as well as Extreme.
That's
so
right.
I'll never forget, he was letting me listen to some Soundgarden before they'd ever released their first album. I was like, dude, this is heavy, man. This is like Black Sabbath or something. I don't, I was just thinking, man, how could there be a market for like a Black Sabbath kind of band? And well, the rest is history. So I think they did pretty well.
Yeah, Black Sabbath with soaring vocals, pretty much.
Yeah, and but over time, man, I've grown to really appreciate. I was never as much of a Pearl Jam fan, I don't guess, but I love Soundgarden, and I don't know.
I'm guessing Alice in Chains, right? A little bit of those melodic.
Yeah, and we on our first tour, we got to play some shows. They opened up a lot of shows for us on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It was really cool watching them take off and be so successful. That was fun. They were really, really cool dudes. Yeah.
Nice. So go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and even I grew to really like Nirvana a lot, and at the time it killed the whole genre of course, that we were in, call it hair metal or whatever. But I never really considered Tora Tora hair metal, but I felt like we were more of a rock, bluesy kind of rock.
I kind of put Tora Tora in with like Tesla, and who also got kind of engulfed by that particular tag, right?
Exactly. And man, we always looked up to those guys so much, man. They were just a great, real straight forward rock band,
right?
With good songs, great songs.
Yeah.
And that's all we ever really aspired to do. I mean, the record labels, I mean, they send somebody out with clothes, way back in 99 and 90, and and try to get you in the leather pants and puff up your hair.
Did they ever try to get you guys to wear makeup?
Makeup? No.
Yeah. Oh,
definitely.
Well, I'm glad you didn't go with it if it got presented, because
that was never even
wouldn't have gone well.
Man, that would not have flown. No. Yeah. We weren't into that.
That's good.
So
yeah. I mean, I think they threw makeup on Tesla there for a little bit, and then they were like, "We're not having it."
Which
maybe was the right call.
The MTV era, man. They tried to cram everybody in the same bubble there. They they wanted all the videos to look the same. It's just where we were at.
Yeah. So, hey, thanks so much for your time. I hope to chat with you again. I think at some point, when you get some more music rolled out, we'll chat again. But Remnants of Euphoria, Again,
sir.
Keith Douglas, amplified.com is where they can find that.
Correct.
Also, I encourage people, if they haven't heard of Tora Tora, check it out because there's
Yeah,
some great stuff
absolutely.
in there.
Yeah, there's some good,
And
good.
even most recently, you did your last studio album too.
Yeah, Bastards of Beale.
Bastards of Beale on Frontiers, I think, is you guys.
That's correct, and I think
Right.
that was 2019. And
It
it's
seems-
more of it's a stripped down,
Yeah.
raw, kind of thing. It's just is what it is. There's
Sure.
nothing extra on there. There's no keyboards,
Right.
piano, no extra instruments. It's just stripped down 4-piece rock and roll.
Which that pretty much sounds like it was recorded live. I mean, kind of like what you're saying. It's
Pretty close.
stripped
We
down.
did it at Sam Phillips recording here in Memphis, and
Okay.
it's an old room and
Mm.
old vibes, and we just pretty much just cranked it off live, and we did a touch up here and there, but that
Right.
kinda is what it is. So,
And I think it's also important to point out, unlike, some of the bands that were out on the scene when you guys were coming up too, is that all original members,
right, yeah. I mean,
which is
that's
very
rare.
unique in this
It's
day and age.
it's rare. I've seen, oh gosh, man, just this past year, I've seen a couple of older bands, and just when there's nobody left, I mean, I don't know. To me, it's a different band.
It is. It's tough. I mean, I know earlier you were talking about Foreigner was one of the first albums you bought with
Yeah.
your money, and
Yeah.
now it's like there isn't anybody even really from the classic lineup performing as Foreigner, and it does.
And
I mean, they sound great, but it does change things a little bit.
listen, I saw them with Styx this past summer, and I thought, man, this is criminal, man. And
yeah.
and I'm not
Yeah.
trying to badmouth those guys. I
Sure.
mean, they're all great
Mhm.
musicians. I mean, obviously Jeff Pilson, and
Oh yeah,
but to me, it was not. I don't know. I was surprised they were
Sure.
doing that. I mean, it was
right.
a cover band. I mean,
Yeah,
with
it's
the
a
Foreigner
sanctioned
backdrop,
sanctioned tribute, basically. I think.
and on that same bill, I saw Styx. who-
Right.
It's been a while, but man, those guys tore it up. Man.
Oh yeah.
They were fantastic. Man.
Are they not heavier live? I mean, it's just kind of like,
Dude,
wow,
it's
it's like a wall of
good.
sound hitting you.
Man, Tommy Shaw and
Yeah.
JY, man,
Mhm.
they have not missed much of a step. And I can't recall his name right now. The Dennis DeYoung.
Oh, Lawrence Gowan. Yeah,
There you go.
yeah,
I thought he was fantastic.
yeah,
If you're
Yeah.
not going to get the original guy, I thought he did a really pretty great job.
for sure. Yeah, I
Um,
think he's one of the highlights.
Yeah, and but just their sound and their performance, man, they're top
Mhm.
notch, man. They're still on
Oh,
their
yeah.
game, and especially back to back with Foreigner, I just
Mhm.
that just kind of I don't know. I wasn't
Yeah.
crazy about it. My wife got tired of hearing that, man. I was just going, man, I don't know about this.
And maybe it's kind of one of those things, you grow up with that band and that's one of the first discoveries. And then I mean, I think the same
Yeah.
thing happened with me and Kiss. I
Yeah.
love Tommy Thayer, but it was, and Eric Singer, but it was
Yeah.
like, oh man,
But
there's
see,
something
I saw
about that.
I saw Foreigner a couple of times back then in the late 70s and early 80s. And they were so fantastic. I loved them so much. And these dudes,
Yeah.
who I said also they're great musicians.
yeah.
But it's just like a bunch of
It's
dudes in
changed it.
front of a Foreigner backdrop, man. I
Yeah.
didn't. Somebody, maybe I read Lou Graham maybe returning.
I think they're doing some stuff where he's going to be coming on to do
Like
a
featured?
handful of songs. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Which that would be cool. I mean,
It
I
would
think
be
it'd be
cool.
nice for the people
Yeah.
that haven't ever seen Lou Graham perform some of those songs with
Yeah,
a top-notch band.
sure.
I mean, but I even think even Lou Graham's band is pretty good. I mean,
Yeah.
he's got top-notch guys there too. I mean, Tony Franklin on bass. I mean,
Right.
that's oof.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, you can't go wrong there.
Yeah, true,
Yeah.
very true. But I don't know. It's just a lot of sentimental stuff.
Sure.
Mm.
Yeah. And I can relate. Like I said, with Kiss, you know, it was that was the similar thing for me. Whatever was like, I caught it a couple times, and I'm like,
Yeah,
I
but
think I'm going
when
to
you're
step
down to
away.
like one guy or
Hmm.
no guys, I mean, it's just let it go.
Right. Yeah.
So
So before I cut you loose, one of the things, because this is going to be for We Go to 11, and it does have a Spinal Tap-esque title to it. Can
yes.
you think of a Spinal Tap-esque type story that you can share with us at
Oh
the
my
tail end of
gosh,
this whole thing?
man, I think every touring band has probably got a lot of Spinal Tap stories. Just you know, from venues, from we were touring, in '89.
Hmm.
You can imagine without cell phones and laptops
Right.
what touring was like. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Monotonous.
It was, well, we might get lost trying to find a place, and if you
Sure.
called them and they weren't there, you may not get directions. I mean, it was
Sure.
just, and just some of the bills of the Spinal Tap puppet show and just weird oddball things. Yes. Or God, I mean, everybody's shown up to play a gig to 8 people, or, uh, you know, it's just bizarre. It's hard.
Yeah.
I don't have a specific exact story, but there are plenty.